platforms accountable and responsible for protecting us all online.
John Penrose.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it's a pleasure to follow on from Zach's MP and her powerful comments. Particularly, I want to pick up on her final comments about the difficulties of not just small platforms, but also larger ones, hosting extremist content, be it incels or alt-right or radical left or any other kind as well. And I want to speak particularly to the two amendments in my name, that is new clauses 34 and 35, which seek to deal with both disinformation and misinformation. And the reason why they are important, Madam Deputy Speaker, is I believe that while this bill has taken huge steps forward, and we are led to believe that it may take a couple more in due course when the revised version comes back, if the recommittal is passed, while this bill has taken huge steps forward, there are still whole categories of harm which it does not yet address. Particularly, it focuses rightly and understandably, as we've heard from many people, on individual harms to children, to illegal activities as they relate to adults. But what it does not deal with yet is anything to do with collective harms, harms to our society, harms to our democracy. And they, Madam Deputy Speaker, I would argue matter too. And the reason why is because if you are a journalist, we've heard from former journalists already during the course of this debate, if you're a journalist, you will know that it takes time and money to come up with a properly researched, authoritatively correct, accurate piece of journalism, but it takes a fraction of that time and a fraction of that cost to invent a lie. And a lie will get halfway around the world before the truth has got its boots on, as the saying rightly says, and particularly because we've heard from my honourable friend from Folkestone and Hythe about this being a systems bill, and he's right to say that. Incidentally, the honourable lady from Rotherham said that she found it absolutely wonderful that we're all learning so much. I share that. I think it is marvellous that we're all comparing and sharing our particular areas of expertise. One person who seems to have all of areas of expertise under his belt is the member for Folkestone and Hythe who chaired the committee in advance of this. But he rightly pointed out that this is a systems bill and it deals therefore with trying to prevent some of these things happening. And yet one of the areas which is completely silent about is misinformation and disinformation and the effect it has on us collectively as a society and as a democracy as well. So my two proposals, new clauses 34 and 35, are an attempt to begin to address those collective harms as alongside some of the individual harms that we face. One of them deals with a duty of balance, the other deals with factual accuracy. And very, very briefly, Madam Deputy Speaker, the duty of balance is trying to address the problem because this is a systems bill and because we all, each of us, have a tailored filter bubble, which each of the major platforms, and some of the minor ones too, work out what we're interested in and then they feed us more of the same. Now that's fine if you're interested in fishing tackle, that's super. But if you are interested in incels and you get fed more and more incel stuff, or you are vaguely left-wing and you get taken down a rabbit hole of increasingly radical left or alternatively alt-right, or whatever it may be, it could be religious extremism as well, pretty soon you get into echo chambers, and from echo chambers you get into radicalisation, and from radicalisation you can pretty soon end up in some very, very murky and dark and deep waters too. And so clearly, the point behind the existing rules, which we already have for other old world broadcasters, to have a duty of balance. So the BBC, ITV, all these other existing broadcasters have a duty of balance and undue prominence imposed on them by Ofcom. And my argument is that we should be considering ways to impose a very similar duty of balance on the people who put together the programmes which create our own individual filter bubbles, so that if you do end up being shown an awful lot of stuff about incels or alt-right or radical left politics, somehow, somewhere in that filter bubble there will be something in your sense saying, you do know that this is only part of the argument, don't you? You do know that there is another side to this. Here's the alternative. Here's the balancing point. We aren't doing that at the moment, and that is one of the major reasons why we have an increasingly divided society, an increasingly divided political debate, that our public square as a society is becoming increasingly more fractious and dangerous in some cases too. So, New Clause 35 would fix that particular problem, and New Clause 34 would deal with the other point, which is to do with the fact that a lie will get halfway around the world before the truth has got its boots on. It tries to deal with with factual accuracy. Factual accuracy, Madam Deputy Speaker, is not quite the same thing as truth. Truth is an altogether larger and more philosophically slippery concept to get your head around. Truth is how we string together accurate and correct facts in order to create a narrative and explanation. But factual accuracy is an absolutely essential building block for truth. And if we do not make an attempt, at least, to make sure that we can all see when someone has made something up and has invented something, whether it is that bleach is a good way to cure COVID or whatever it might be, when somebody makes something up, we need to know. And it needs to be clear. And in many cases it is clear, but in many cases if it's a plausible lie or it's a deep fake or whatever it might be, it isn't clear, and we need to be able to see that easily and quickly and immediately and say, I can discount this because I know that the person producing it is a serial liar, tells huge great big porkies, and I shouldn't be trusting what they're sending me, or I can see that the actual item itself is clearly made up. And it isn't, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the same way as this point about achieving a duty of balance is already existing rules and law in other parts of our society, and it's tried and tested and has stood us very well, done a good job for us for 40 or 50 years since TV and radio became ubiquitous. The same thing is true, although not for quite such a long time, for factual accuracy too, because there are increasingly good methods of checking the factual accuracy of individual bits of content, and if necessary, in some cases, doing it in real time too. So, for example, Adobe is leading a very large global grouping producing something called the Content Authenticity Initiative, which can tell you if something is a deep fake because it has an audit trail of where the image or whatever it might be, the item, came from and how it has been updated or modified or changed during the course of its life. But there are others. Very briefly, yes.
On that point, given one of our colleagues, the member for Bosworth, I don't think he's in the chamber at the moment, I just wanted to raise the work he's done around body image, and in particular about making sure that when images are photoshopped and where they're changed, to give an idea of beauty being very different from what's possible in the real world, very much falls into that idea of truth. And I wonder what the members, honourable members, and my honourable friends' thoughts were on that point.
I think it's absolutely essential, because if we know that something has been changed, it also goes for any of the deep fake examples we've been hearing about before, including from my honourable friend from Basingstoke as well. If you can see that something has been changed, you can tell easily. And the whole point about deepfake is it's hard to tell, but if you can suddenly tell easily, then you can say, I know that's not right, I know that is not true, I know that is false, and I can aim off from it and I can treat it accordingly. And so therefore, Madam Deputy Speaker, just to make sure that everybody understands, this is not some piece of new tech magic. This is something which is already established. Adobe is doing it, as I said, with a Content Authenticity Initiative, widely backed by other very, very serious tech firms. But others in the journalism world are doing the same thing. There's the Journalist Trust Initiative. There's NewsGuard that produces trust ratings. There's the Trust Project that produces trust indicators. And, of course, we have our own press regulators here in this country as well, IPSO and Impress. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, I would urge the government and all here present not to be satisfied with where this bill stands now. We have all heard about how it can be improved. We've all heard that this is new, groundbreaking and difficult area which many other countries have not even got as far as we have. But we should not be in any way satisfied with where we are now. My honourable friend from Kenilworth said earlier on that we need to approach this bill in a spirit of being humble. And this is an area where humility is absolutely essential. And I hope that all of us here will realise how much further we have to go. And I hope that the Minister will address, therefore, how he proposes to address these important and so far uncovered issues in due course.
Liz Twist.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.